I'm Kamari Ellis. Many know me as a finance rebel. I'm a tax accountant, money nerd, person that all around loves black people. And I basically work during the day as a tax accountant, and at night I'm a financial educator. So that's what I do.
What's up? My name is Caleb Boyce.
Caleb, hold the mic a little closer.
I'm a Howard University alum, go Bison. And so I'm happy to be back here for this summit. I currently work for Dapper Labs Flow, and I'm running a grant program. It's a $1.2 million grant program for Black developers and creators to launch dApps on Flow. And we've got a few of the grantees here, including HU DAO Labs, African Museum of the Metaverse, and also Montech. Olu's over here too. So I'm really excited to be able to give money into our community and help people innovate. My background is in consulting. I scale businesses, and so it was a nice fit to be able to help these young teams early in Web3 really develop businesses at scale.
3 minutes. Fasa ready, keynote.
Fasa, I just want to jump right in. We have limited time. We don't own our culture, and we don't know how to own our culture. And there's actually a way and a process of doing that, and we haven't been privy to that. It starts off with cultures create communities. Communities create economies. Economies create the rules and laws for exchanges to be created, industries to be created, marketplaces to be created. Then you have companies, which is where we focus a lot of our attention, which is the entrepreneurship side. They create products, and then you get consumers. There's a gap between economies and marketplace that we're not really participating in at the highest levels, but that's the level that they participate in. That's why they have industrialists and we're entrepreneurs. That's why they get paid off every transaction from exchanges that have to do with our culture, and we don't get the value from those exchanges that we should be getting at the highest levels. We're building an economy to be able to support us owning our culture, monetizing our culture in our own space above the internet, which is the largest freestanding information landmass in the world. That's it.
All right, given that a lot of people in our audience are probably new to crypto, let's break down this title first and foremost. How do you explain to someone who is not familiar with crypto what the heck is a digital asset? And you know what the question is going to be after, so don't go into the next question. It's going to be like, what is DeFi? So let's take that first, let's break it down elementary. What is a digital asset? Plain English.
The way I explain it is I tell people it's computer money. They try to give it to them real simple and plain. I let them know it's a way to exchange values and goods with digital currency, not to reuse the asset though. But that's how I explain it.
I like to use I think, so digital assets is a new term, but really it's kind of, if you trade stocks online, if you got a Charles Schwab account and you trade equities, it's a digital asset too. Chances are you don't have the actual stock certificate like they used to get back in the old days. So really digital assets are the same thing as an equity or a stock. It's just an asset that exists in the internet basically, and digitally, and you can trade and appreciate value with it. You can also lose money with it, but it's a digital asset in that way. And the nice thing about, or the interesting thing about blockchain is you can actually own it and have exclusive right over that asset, which is not really possible before.
Yeah, digital asset, I agree with both things they said, but yeah, digital asset is simply anything that has value that's been digitized that can be an exchange, that can be exchanged between people or for any type of value.
Absolutely. So we have some younger people coming in the building that just arrived, a high school age, representing your neighborhood. But just for their sake, asset, it could be physical, something that it can be owned. It could be audio file, it could be something visual, a painting, it could be written word, it could be physical clothing, anything, building, asset, anything that you can own. And what we're saying is when we talk about digital, we're talking about, okay, now we're making a version of it that might be available for gameplay or movies or film, or it could still even be a physical product. Like for instance, earlier this morning, Robin O'Connell of Hold mentioned the word phygital, but he didn't quite define it. So you guys are getting privy to some new crypto slang. physical and digital at the same time. So somebody designs a digital sneaker, but you're like, dang, I wish I had that sneaker for real. And someone is like, well, I can send the specs to a manufacturer and they can make it. So now you have a digital and a physical. You have a phygital. So you can throw that around and really impress some people. So now let's get into the second part of the title of this baraza. How do you explain to someone who doesn't understand it what is DeFi, or decentralized finance?
Well, I let them know that most things are centralized. Most economies are centralized. And what I try to do is say, I look at cooperative economics. I'm a big fan of cooperative economics. And so I say, instead of having to go to the bank and get a loan, let's say you got 50 of your friends, that everybody's going to contribute, let's say $100 to buy some real estate. That's an example of DeFi. But you can use DeFi in anything. But to stay true to your question, that's how I usually answer DeFi, or answer what it is.
Caleb.
That's a great question. I think, so finance, if you think about finance, maybe in the context of how we might use it is with a bank account. Let's say you want to go open up a savings account to put your money in and collect interest on that bank account. You may have to go to the bank, you may have to fill out an application, maybe do a process to get approved, and then you can have your money in the bank and you can interact with that bank with your assets that are at the bank. With DeFi, you can do it on an exchange without having to get anybody's approval, really. There's some aspects around compliance, like KYC. Brother Ernest over there is working that stuff at Coinbase, but it's basically there's a way for you to have more access to financial activities that could earn you revenue or earn you like money. And so DeFi, big difference between DeFi and regular finance is that it gives greater access, and that's afforded by decentralization. So instead of having a central bank with a central ledger, you have a decentralized ledger, and that's what gives people access. So you can have people all over the world trading money with each other in ways it's really never been possible before.
I think those two things are correct. I'm not sure what else I could speak to it, but I would say that what DeFi does is it gives us an opportunity to monetize different things. Information can be monetized and exchanged in these types of systems. I know people that are using DeFi to create wallets in the healthcare space that affinity-based communities such as affinity-based communities can share and exchange value based on the information that they deem to be important to them. We're talking about the different systems of governance in which, because communities are supposed to be the people that are exchanging value, and we are outside of that loop as a community. And so if we can get into that space, again, it puts us in an opportunity to monetize our culture, the things that matter most to us. So I think DeFi is a spin on what the current financial system is and gives us opportunity to innovate. Say something.
Okay, so you have cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, et cetera. There's more than 20,000 now. It's not even worth listing them. And you have other digital assets, NFTs and stuff. Someone approaches you who is a novice and says, I want to trade crypto. What are some of the admonitions you give them, and what are some of the affirmations you give them?
I get asked this a lot. And actually, just to be fully transparent, many people call me a Bitcoin hater because I've had a lot of people, real life scenario, I've had people come up to me and say, I have $500 in savings. I want to throw it in Bitcoin. And I say no. And there are some people that are in our community that have encouraged it. But when you look at it from a financial planning perspective, it's not a great savings tool. It is very valuable, right? No doubt. But it has its proper place. Everything has its proper place. So when someone asks me that question, I say, one, do you understand it? Two, have you read any white papers? I find that nobody reads the white papers. I get that some of them are a little challenging. But before you buy any asset, invest in any asset, save in any asset, you need to know what it is. So I usually tell them no in the context of the question that you just asked.
Before we go to Caleb, I'm going to keep breaking for vocabulary lessons. He's mentioning white paper. That also was mentioned this morning in some of the discussions. For those of you who don't know, in the crypto and also technical space, there essentially is a book report. And that book report is always labeled as a white paper. That book report is supposed to explain not only what they're doing, but how they're doing it, and what technologies they're doing it, and what are the benefits. So if those of you who are in school, you had this rubric that you're supposed to follow. So people keep saying, read the white paper, and the number one white paper you should read is the Bitcoin white paper, and you can Google it, bitcoin.org. But the reason why they keep saying that is what happens when you read a lot of books. If you read a lot of books, you can tell the good ones from the bad ones, especially if it's on a given subject. So some people do a white paper, and it's just marketing stuff. We're going to get you rich and get you rich and get you rich and get you rich. But what did the teacher say about the rubric? Where's the how? Where are the risks? Behind the project in terms of their technical expertise. So you're going to hear this white paper mentioned quite a bit, read the white paper, because you have to get accustomed to the sector to be able to learn what they're supposed to be producing to educate the public about the projects that they're working on. So Caleb, back to that question.
Yeah, that's really, really great. When people ask me to do that, I want to invest in Bitcoin, here's some money. My question is why? Like, what are you trying to get out of it? A lot of people are like trying to get rich. I was like, maybe you can get rich off $500, maybe not, but there's a bunch of ways that you can invest your money. And there's traditional markets. There's also ways you can do it in like DeFi and also with crypto. And so it's like, what are you trying to achieve? It's like, well, I want this kind of return. Okay, cool. Well, you have to accept this kind of risk, which means you might lose some of this money or all of the money. And so, okay, well, I'm willing to take that risk because it's $500 I can afford to lose. Okay, cool. Then let's look like, what are you trying to appreciate with and what time frame? And so it's like really just like a process of like understanding like what the different like value propositions are for each type of asset, and like that's what cryptocurrency is and DeFi is, and it, in my opinion, is evaluating assets. So it's like, well, if you want to make like 3% over 5-10 years, you probably should go with a bank account or something like that. But let's say you can't get a bank account because of any number of reasons, especially in our community, then maybe you want to go to a decentralized exchange, like something in DeFi, to buy an asset there that might appreciate in value over time. And the thing about cryptocurrencies, they've not been around that long, but as stocks and equities have been around for a long time, probably 100 years. And so it's easier to kind of bet, with a safer bet on an equities, like buying stocks essentially, but the return is going to be lower because the risk is lower. And so if you want higher risk and higher return, you can go with something like, it's a little more volatile, like cryptocurrencies, for example. And so it's really about understanding that, like, what's the risk, reward kind of ratio that you're looking for.
The question again, just
What advice do you give somebody who says they want to get involved in buying and trading cryptocurrencies? The admonitions as well as positive affirmation.
There's a lot of misinformation in the space. I would look into getting educated first for a couple of weeks on what it is that, cryptocurrency, the biggest thing, you've got wallets that are getting hacked, people not having the information and stuff. Our community is really, we've been the targets of a lot of that. So I would tell them to get educated, and I would tell them to, and that's it. I would just tell them to be educated on it.
Decentralized finance. Have you seen anything that is interesting? Now, for those who don't know, decentralized finance, what they're doing is they may be using a computer program with a set of rules. So those of you who took algebra, and I was not the greatest math students, but if this, then that, the logic, conditional statements. So instead of this direct peer-to-peer exchange of something, I buy this crypto and it comes to me, someone is saying, let's put some rules on it. Let's say you buy this and you put this there and you lock it away for X amount of time. Will you or won't you earn some interest, or if you remove it too early, you'll be penalized. So very similar to what actually exists in regular finance, these type of applications. within the banking industry are finding its way into crypto. So what I'm asking them is, have you seen actually any innovation in DeFi that's worth talking about, or do you think that what's being replicated in decentralized finance is just nothing more than what already can exist in banking, so why bother? So I'm being a little gadflyish here.
I mean, I've seen some loans done via real estate that I think was really, really cool. You brought up something, though, about the algorithms. I'm a little worried, though, that anytime we get algorithms involved in anything when it comes to black folks, it's another leverage tool that they use to discriminate against us. And I know that the community, the crypto community, isn't supposed to do that or isn't for that. But I'm always skeptical when I see stuff like that. But I've seen some loans for real estate. I've seen some business loans as well. No credit use or very limited credit use. And it's worked out really well for some of the people that have used it.
So I'm really interested in NFTs. I work for an NFT company. Dapper Labs is behind NBA Top Shot, which is basically creating virtual basketball cards that are little clips of videos, and people are able to purchase those for things they're passionate about, like different fans or different teams, different players. So I think that's really cool. That's just one aspect of NFTs. I think that people are like, oh, NFTs are profile photos like Bored Apes, or they're moments like this, like video clips, but they actually represent a whole lot more than that, and so it's a really exciting opportunity. One thing I'll mention here in the context of this conversation is, like in a DeFi context, is actually people who have bought NFTs that are appreciated in value or maintain value. It looks like for Bored Apes, just for example, but there are a lot of other artists that have communities that are really keeping the price of their art up because those communities really believe in it, and they're using NFTs to do that. And so you could be a big fan of a particular artist, let's say, that does really cool art that you like, and there might be a big community of that. And you might buy an NFT, early on with a job they do, and that NFT might appreciate in value. The interesting thing about DeFi is that you can then take that NFT and the value of that NFT and potentially leverage it to get liquidity. And what that means is that you can take a loan out against that NFT. Now, it's risky, for sure, but you might be a fan of something and all of a sudden have an asset that's worth a ton of money. Like, people collect fine art, like a Basquiat, for example, and you're like, oh, I knew Basquiat back in the day, and I bought something, a version of Basquiat in the digital sense here, and I bought an NFT from him, and now it's worth $100,000. I can leverage that to buy a house. I can leverage that to invest in a business. I can leverage that to help pay for some bills that I know I'm going to be able to pay back, but I would not be able to get normal liquidity from traditional asset. I don't own a house, or I'm not able to get a loan. And so I think that's like what is, to break it down, it's like with NFTs, you have a whole different asset class that you can then leverage to give yourself liquidity to make investments in any number of things, or to pay bills. Even if it's short-term things, like I need a short amount of money to cover me until the next paycheck, you can leverage an NFT that you bought from an artist that you really like to do that. And that's really never been possible before. I mean, not except for in like the ultra-high net worth circles where you could leverage fine art and that kind of thing. But now this is accessible to everybody through decentralization and decentralized exchange and decentralized finance. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Agreed. And another thing, that when you're able to embed smart contracts into currency, you're talking about systems that are trustless. You're talking about systems where you can meet a certain criteria. So when you're talking about credit scores, now they're starting to expand what a credit score is and starting to explore what are the other aspects of somebody's life, because this credit score doesn't account for all of these other things that are why this person's credit score is why this credit score is, like their health, their transportation, the fact that they're in a food insecure environment, all these different factors in somebody's life. People don't live in sectors. Smart contracts create the opportunity for us to be able to move across sector, explore other aspects of people's life without compromising their data, the integrity of their data and their personal information, so that something like a credit score doesn't impact their life in a negative way for years. It's hard to get that person back whenever, once their credit score drops below a certain level. But if we could find other information and other data sets that are being stored in smart contracts to show that there's effort on their side to improve in these areas, then that's another way that DeFi is able to change the space. I do know some community-based organizations that are working on that.
Another great opportunity, thank you, FASA, for a vocabulary lesson, smart contract. Essentially, it's just a computer script that allows people to transact with one another in a relationship in which the script is acting like the middle person. So the most simple smart contract is you sending Bitcoin from one person to the other. There's not a human being that's validating and securing that transaction. It's an entire protocol of the blockchain, but it is also a script that generates this type of process. So when we talk about decentralized finance, people are just being creative with crypts. And I actually want to take a minute to answer a question before I ask another question. But I'm going to let you guys hear the next question so you can think about it. And so the next question is, where do you see people actually teaching about decentralized financing and the designing of these new products? Or if you don't see it, what would you like to see, people actually teach about designing DeFi? And we only have about 2 minutes, so I'm going to be brief in my comments so that you guys can answer that question. But I think the gaming sector is going to be very interesting. Caleb already mentioned NFTs, but this idea of little micro payments, little activities that you're doing online and exploring online, and because you did this, it executes that. So we'll get more into that in a later session, but the whole play to earn or play and earn, sometimes they're labeling it that way, are actually going to be these decentralized finance opportunities for young people. Because you're already playing games, you're already spending money in games, but you're not necessarily gaining in games. So I think that's going to be the smart contract difference. So final question for the panel.
So I see DeFi, crypto, being taught at By the Hood University with the children, which I try to get involved with it as much as possible. And where I would like to see it go, I'm going to say this might be a little controversial. I actually would like us to see it take a step back from crypto and DeFi and get into overall finance and economics and just understand how money works throughout. Because Bitcoin, DeFi, they're all tools. If we don't understand how to best leverage those tools and just fall into the salesmanship that everybody's selling to us, we wind up getting abused. And we've seen this happen in our communities time and time and time again. So we fall for the sales pitch, not knowing that this tool wasn't applicable to our situation. So I would like us to see more, not just financial literacy, but financial mastery, right? Because literacy is just the basic level. We need mastery. We need to be able to, as Basa said, take control of our culture. By the way, that's one of my favorite words that we don't use, that we don't really look into, because the true value and gem for us really is in our culture. So I would like us to see us really get into more finance and economics. And again, Bitcoin, DeFi is just another tool of that. So we can get into that as well.
So people want to learn about cryptocurrency or blockchain or whatever it is, and it's like, hey, you should go read some stuff online. It's like, I use an analogy. It's like if you said, somebody said to you, I want to learn what the internet is, or I want to learn about the internet. It's like, well, where do you tell people to go? It's like, well, the internet is, it's Uber app, it's, it's Google search, it's forums, it's like, it's international trade, it's all these things, right? So the way I approach it is, it's like, what are you interested in? So let's say I'm interested in art, interested in sports. Like, some kids that are interested in sports, they know everything about a sport. Is there a class in sports at that school? Like, if I want to be a basketball player, is there a basketball class? Maybe you practice in gym, but you're not learning the ins and outs of basketball. You're not learning all the stats of the best players in the history of basketball. You're learning that because you're passionate about it. And so it's like, what are you passionate about? Blockchain is a platform, essentially, like the internet. So there's a million ways you can learn about blockchain in a very narrow and specific way that'll give you that, like, that's interesting to you. And I think you should look for that first. So as opposed to going, like, Googling, blockchain or Bitcoin or whatever it is, like, start with, like, hey, what am I passionate about? Like, for example, even with, I'm a sailor, I sail quite a bit. And so there's actually a community of sailors that are like operating using NFTs around, NFTs for sailing. And so I can go and look at that. Or let's say that I'm interested in music or music artists or type music or production. I can go look at like what music NFT companies are happening, or like what is an NFT relative to music, or what are my favorite artists doing to like monetize their followings using NFTs or DAOs or NFT gated communities. So it's really about thinking about what is it you're passionate about, what is something that you'd be willing to do for free, and then trying to figure out how that applies to some aspect of the blockchain, whether it's DeFi or cryptocurrency or anything like that. And so that's the advice I give, is how to break into it. And once you find something that's interesting to you, it'll be a lot easier to kind of go deep on that and just really go deep on the concept and understand it. And so especially use that with kids, because it's like, hey, go read a white paper, and it's like, it could be interesting, but they're gonna have almost no context and almost no interest. And so it's like, find something that interests them and then apply it to the technology.
I would like to see us focus on DeFi not as money, DeFi as our culture. Our information and our data funds other people's economies. DeFi is the means for which the exchange of our ideas and our culture are funneling into other people's economies and allowing their resources to cycle in their economy so that they can own those ideas. I would like to see DeFi move to a place where we start monetizing in different ways, in our own way, our ideas, so that we can define what the laws and what the policy is going to be on some of these. And the NFT space is still open. All the policy hasn't landed yet. All the regulation hasn't landed yet. We should be moving in a coordinated way to think about what type of policy suits us, because it's our ideas that are funneling resources into the economy that we're getting eaten up by. And so I hope that we're teaching our young people and the truth, which is that it's not the money, it's our ideas that the money oscillates around, and that if we can own our intellectual property and monetize our intellectual property, we won't need anybody else for help. We won't need anyone else. We already are the value. We are DeFi. That's how I feel about it. And if we move in a coordinated way and start plotting a course that's 10 to 15 years long instead of 3 to 5 years like a company where you're trying to exit, we need to own the shit. We need to own 20, 30, 40, 50 years and start planning ahead of time. That's what we need to be in the DeFi space. I'm gonna shut up.
I just want to make one more comment. I love what you said about like trying to explain a smart contract, which I think is a key part of what this enables. It's like it's a software as a middleman. So instead of the middleman being somebody in a suit who's pressing a button on a computer somewhere, it's actually software that's been pre-coded to make sure it's a trustless transaction, meaning I don't have to rely on that person pressing the button or being out sick or whatever it is. And that's like the beauty of smart contracts. And so I love that analogy. That was like exactly what it is.
I wanted to close it out because I know we're over time, but you know, people think they're unfamiliar with this technology, but they're not. There's nobody that's verifying when you fill out an online form. When someone says fill out this form, if it's a Google form or whatever, it's the script that does that. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the programming language along with the protocol, the network of computers that kind of power it all together, being the person that's executing what you want done. I'd like to thank Kamari Ellis, Caleb Boyes, and Fasa for the Trading DeFi and Trading at Digital Assets and DeFi panel. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.